Confidence. I'm Crystal Oculee. I'm the Chief Financial Strategist here at Confidence Wealth. And every week I try to bring you something that I see a lot of conversations on, or maybe some confusions on, and want to just make sure that you get updated and you learn from all the questions that are coming up throughout the meetings. And one of the things that I've been getting a lot of questions about is, what's the difference between taxable, tax deferred? What does that mean? So I want you to think about your money in a sense as you're saving already towards your retirement, or even as now, if you are at retirement and you have your buckets of money, I want you to think about it as you're at a traffic light. So if you're at a traffic light, we got the yellow light, we got the red light, and we got the green light. So I'm going to share a screen with you really quickly to make it easy. So for your buckets of money, so here we are, we've got your yellow money. Your yellow money is what I consider your taxable money. Taxable means your principal is already paid taxes on. The gains are going to be exposed to capital gains. So if you, for example, have $500,000 that you bought stocks with, and that $500,000 is now $1 million, you don't pay on the first $500,000 because that was your principal, the money you put in after you had paid the taxes, but all the gains would be taxable. So that is why we consider that bucket taxable. A lot of times people say, well, Crystal, why is it called taxable? I already paid money on my principal. Yes, the principal is paid, but you have to pay on the gains, and that's capital gains. So what risk do you have in that yellow bucket? Well, the risk is when you sell it, what if capital gains taxes are different? What if they have gone higher? Or what if the year you're going to liquidate is the year that you may have had other tax things that happened? Maybe you had a bonus that year. Maybe you sold a house that year. So now if you're selling some stocks, that could also create some tax consequences during the distribution phase of your retirement, because that's really what you're planning for, right? All the buckets you're saving money on is at some point in retirement, you're going to take a distribution from them. So you have to be very strategic. If you had money only in one bucket, then you're going to have exposure only to that type of tax. So now let's take a look at your red bucket. Your red bucket is going to be your tax deferred. This is the one that has the most amount of tax exposure, because this is everything you saved money on at some point. Oops, I brought the green bucket. We'll go to that in a second. So it's everything that you saved in your 401k, for example, your IRA, your 403b, maybe your thrift savings plan, whatever that retirement fund was, the defined benefit plan. You didn't pay taxes because you are lowering your tax bracket now during the work years. But the moment you retire and the moment you need money from that bucket, you have to pay taxes on. So in a traditional sense, the reason this bucket was very popular is that we always want to reduce our taxes during the working years. So it makes sense to just, put some money away, must put some money away in those buckets and then worry about it later. But when you really think about it, in this time and this day and age, if you think like I do, which if you think taxes are going to go up in the future, then you really want to make sure that you don't have so much in this red bucket that you could be exposed. So example, let's pretend, for the sake of math, to make it easy, you have $1 million in this bucket. And that $1 million during your working years, saved you money. You put it away because you were at, let's say, a 30% tax bracket. So you wanted to bring your tax bracket lower. That's what you put money towards this tax deferred, and it built to $1 million. Now, during your retirement, let's say 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, you always thought you were going to be only 20% tax bracket because you were going to have less income. Well, what if tax rates change? And what if taxes go up in the future? Now, if you thought all along Uncle Sam was a silent partner of, let's say, 20% in that $1 million bucket, if he changes the rules on you and now he's a 40% partner, you just lost another 20% of that bucket to a regulation change, which would be like, let's say, for example, in this case, taxes. So That's where you have to be really careful. If you have the belief that you don't think taxes are ever going to go up in the future, then you really don't have to worry about this. But if you think taxes will go up in the future, you really want to make sure that you're watching this red bucket closely and you don't build so much on it. My belief is that, who knows, taxes could very easily go to what they were in the 70s, where the highest tax bracket used to be 70%. So, and there were a lot of people paying 40 and 50% in taxes, and 30% was, again, not a big deal. So if that happens, this could be a situation where in retirement, you could have a higher tax bracket than you ever thought before. Just because of the debt we're in and everything we have to pay off, someone has to pay for it. So that's why I'm a big fan of creating this green bucket. Your green bucket is going to be no federal taxes, no state taxes, and no capital gains. And here's another rule: it cannot cause your Social Security to be taxed. So, for example, a Roth IRA, right? So if you have a Roth 401k as well, some of you will have a 401k you may not know about. That's your Roth 401k. So then you can contribute to that. So it's nice to build that bucket. If you're no longer working and you're like, Crystal, I can't contribute to this anymore. Well, one of the things you could do is you can look at the red bucket and strategically move some of that over to the green bucket. So that's why it's really important to have really a right amount in each of these buckets. So when the time comes for a distribution, you're using the correct bucket to reduce your taxes during any given year. So if you have a year where you had sold properties and you needed to take money out of your other buckets, well, maybe the green bucket would have been the way to go. So you wouldn't worry about paying more taxes. And if it was a year that it was very low in income, well, then the red bucket would be the perfect one to go to. Or those medium years, maybe the capital gain, the yellow bucket would be a good one to go to. So you can see there is a time and a place for each bucket to be used. It doesn't mean you get rid of all of your red bucket. That doesn't necessarily mean that, because not everybody can do that. You may have already built quite a bit on it. And also you have to look at it from a perspective of what your taxes are going to look like in a sense in the future. So for example, let's just pretend that you're a married couple and you only have Social Security that's coming in, and you have money from your IRA that you're going to take a distribution from at some point. And then you've got maybe your yellow money, and then you have some green money. Well, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have anything in the red money, because technically, if you had, let's say, $500,000 by the time you were 72 in that red bucket and no more in that red bucket, where the rest was in the other buckets, then your RMD would be less than what your standard deduction would be, which would mean what you take out, your standard deduction will offset your required minimum distribution. So example, if your required minimum distribution was 19,500 and your standard deduction is above 20,000. So guess what? Now you're not having to pay any taxes, even though it was a red bucket. So you can see that for everyone, it really depends on their income, where it's coming from, and how much would make sense in each bucket. It doesn't mean you get rid of those buckets, because you can't really, if you built a lot, let's say you have 5 million in that red bucket right now, well, you can't just say, well, I only want 500,000, I want to get rid of the rest. Well, you can't all in one year go ahead and convert it. Can you? You can, but you probably don't want to, because that would be a hefty tax bill. So you can see why tax planning is one of the most important things that you can do during the distribution phase of retirement. So I wanted to just give you this little quick education about all these different buckets and why it's important to have different ones so you can utilize them the right way during the distribution phase. If you have any questions regarding your buckets and how that works, please don't hesitate to let us know. You have my email, askcrystal@icwm.com. And that's ASKCRYSTAL@icwm.com. Or go ahead and message me here. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you have any comments for me, or if there's any subjects you want to hear more about, please don't hesitate to let me know. So think of it as like a tidbit for the week. What do you want Crystal to talk about? And what's a good hot topic that's on your mind? And I'm happy to go ahead and put that in. Have a great one. Until next time.